Okay, welcome back to day 348. Yay. I'm actually don't look that tired as I normally do. But then I still look tired, and then I also realized that it is not late at all, and I only got up 4 hours ago. So, dual end sword. Dual edge. Not end. Imagine. I mean, I guess there is the hole in the center and there's two blades on both sides. It just seems like a surefire way of how I stab myself. You know? Yeah. Anyways, we're doing things a little early today. Because I want to get things done because I have to get up tomorrow early. Yay. So I need to do a bunch of stuff today. Well. When you have a list of things and then you just keep getting reminded of more things. Like, oh, my plants, I haven't done those. Buying testosterone, you do that. Right, you gotta do that. And 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 that. If I buy... I wanna cry. One whole thing is just stressful when I'm so overwhelmed by it. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. It shouldn't be, but here we are. Anyways, what's the point? God, I have so much to do. The problem is I just don't think I can get someone to give me my testosterone shot, and I'm not going to go get it paid for really expensively again. So I even so I can pick up my testosterone, who's gonna give it to me? Because, hear me out, it scares me and I hate it. It gives me anxiety. Just thinking about it made me just feel like headed how warm, just hot, just overwhelmed. Ugh. Dang, this quality is so good. I'm sorry, I'm still not over it. Damn. This is just so clear. This is just such a clear video. This is such well, not this. This is just so crisp. It's so nice looking, so crisp, but then the actual content is killing me, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Ugh. Anyways, last night my cat was sleeping, and he had his little paw with his little toe beans, so I put my big toe in his little hand as I walked by, because I'm like, haha, bothering you. Anyways, and he was awake. It wasn't like I startled him, but he did the thing where he likes to hold people's hands and stuff. I put my hand in him, and he's in his little paw, and he's like, I know what to do. And he goes under all his claws, dig into my toe. I'm like, no, no, no. He's like, I'm just stretching. I'm like, yeah, into my toe. You can't do that. So anyways, ouch. And then he wanted to play. And then he's like, nah, I'm too tired. I'm like, oh, okay. Fair, I guess. But now I got you a toy. And he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, okay. Go back to bed. And he's like, I'm back to bed. I'm like, okay. Okay. Cool. What else is going on? Is there anything going on? I don't think so. Okay, we're back. But now I have a video game playing. And it's loud. So I won't turn it down. Yes. Oh, is that always, can I? Oh, it stopped. Oh, it stopped. Okay. I wonder if the video game music is gonna come back. But right now it's quiet. But it's all spooky for Halloween. Also, Halloween is like, ow. Ugh. God, I hate things. I hate everything. I hate. God, I hate being stressed. So I'm not going to. Just not going to be. I'm not going to be stressed. I mean, it's just, that's how it is. It's just not going to be stressed. Yep. Yeah, when he was, just now when he was saying that he was nervous in the video, and the other Mark was like, why? And he's like, I just am. And it really gets to me when, Mark is all like, oh, I just, you know, it's all just like a thing in your head. You're not actually feel love, or you don't actually like something, or it's not actually pain, it's just in your head. I'm like, everything is in your head. Yeah. And not in like everything that you think is real. Like, I'm not saying, there's some people that really hurt that line. I'm not one of those people, but I'm saying that the fact that that there was, it's like, yes, you're in pain because you're reacting to something. It is real, even if it's not rational. Like, there's no reason to be scared of blank. It's not a rational fear of blank. It's like, well, you're still afraid of it. Like, he's worried about this, but like actually being afraid, it's like, it's not rational. It's like, yeah, okay, and you still have the reaction. Oh, well, love is in your head. Everything's in your head, sweetheart. Everything. And then, and so that really got to me, because it's just like, yeah, I saw one thing where it's all like, MSG isn't even real, it's artificial to make you think that something is tastier. Yeah, like, spices are just there to make things taste better. Like, yeah, like, it's not fake or tricking your brain. It is a thing that actually exists, you know? And it's like the one, like, Miracle Berry, where it's like, it doesn't taste sour, it's, your brain is tricked. It's like, no, your tongue is coated in something that tastes sweet, and once that dissolves, you go back to whatever flavor. It's not tricking. It's not like your brain, like, tricking is like that thing where you have your hand on one side of a curtain that you can't see, and then there's a fake hand in front of you, and they brush both your, like, your hand and then the fake hand, but now your brain will associate that hand is not my hand. So when they hit that fake hand with a hammer, your brain reacts thinking it's your own hand. You think you're getting your hand hit with a hammer. And that's, and that, it's like, that is tricking your brain. Love isn't less valid of a feeling because it's not a physical thing. Like getting cut and bleeding is a physical thing. It doesn't mean it's any less being angry and just because you can't physically see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in reality. And it just bothers me. That happened one time, and I wish I was sick on LGBT day, or else I would have probably physically fought this guy. He was transphobic, homophobic, he was not a great guy. He's like, I don't think, like, growing up, I didn't think, men ruled the world. I thought it was women, because I grew up on a naval, or on an army base that was a woman army base. I'm like, no, you didn't. That base is not one you can live on. So meaning your mother went to work on a female army base doesn't equal not noticing all the presidents are guys. And at this point, like, at growing up, all white guys, like, no, he wasn't white, but he told me he was, he's like, I'm Mexican. I'm like, okay, great. And then I realized apparently he just grew up in a suburb, and people are like, I grew up in that suburb. No, it's not, like, it doesn't have Mexican heritage there. And I'm like, oh, okay, but at this point, I didn't know him or anything, so I was like, okay. But then later in a different class for a different argument, because that was when he was supporting Trump, and it's like, Trump should make the Mexican people build the wall. I'm Mexican, so I can say this. I'm like, oh, okay. And then later, he was doing the same thing, where it's like, I practically grew up in the Philippines. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. No, then I realized it was just the same story again, and it was such an awkward thing, because I guess everyone has that period of time when they first go into university, and I guess they like lie about things. I don't know, it was such a weird thing. And he's like, I don't think people in the army should, and by the way, he wasn't in the army either. He talked like, he's like, I'm practically an army guy. I'm like, your mom worked in the army, but chill. So he had that a lot of times where it's like, I'm practically blank because I grew up in it. And I'm like, oh, okay, and give it, you're gonna be a very cultured person. But then I realized he was trying to have his voice overstep everyone else's voice, where I realized that, like, he's like, I'm practically an army man, so I can speak that trans people shouldn't get money for any hormones, and if they are trans, they shouldn't even get money for, like, other things like schooling, because now they're going to put all their saved money to be transitioning. And I'm like, honey, 75% of this classes aren't, like, actual army people that are disbanded, is that the word, no longer in service in the army. Like 75% of our class. So a guy, like a big, like, army guy, was just like, I can only afford schooling because of the army. The army does give you money for certain things, and just because you think, like, it was just like, the fact that he was like, army doesn't give people money, and the guy's like, yes, it does. School, I'm literally getting disabilities like all the people there, because oh my god, every single person at that school was getting disabilities from the army. I'm like, it's almost like you walk away always disabled in one way, shape, or form. Somebody had multiple panic attacks, and the other person had anxiety, but also physical disabilities, obviously physical disabilities, and it was awful. But anyway, so what happened was, then, like, an actual army guy was like, shut up. Yes, you do get money, you get paid. And so if they, you know, like, okay, maybe if the army pays for exactly the same thing as me, and then that's when the guy was like, well, then they shouldn't get money for school. If they can afford transitioning, they shouldn't. And I'm like, what? And then the army people were like, shut the fuck up, bro. And I was like, ooh. Anyways, it was just anything to try to be, different things. And he was talking about, like, he can talk about the army because he practically grew up in the army, and then he's going to talk about the Filipino culture and everything because he practically grew up in the Philippines. Then he can talk about, like, Mexican culture and the relation to, the U.S. Army or U.S. Politics, and I'm like, and then I realized that's what he said about literally everything. And he's like, later we were talking about sex work, and what happened was we were talking about sex work, and he goes, it's really easy, all you have to do is disassociate. And I was like, boy, if I sit there and disassociate when someone's paying, do you realize how quickly that person wouldn't pay? How quickly that could turn violent? And my teacher shot him the hell down. Like, fuck you, no. But she's a teacher, so she was being really, really nice. But she's like, literally, like, everyone stopped talking because we were in individual work, and he was telling me this in particular, like, oh, just disassociate. And I was like, A, have you ever disassociated before in your life? B, if you had, if you had a girlfriend, yes, he was putting forth that he was straight, and says, if you had a girlfriend, you're having sex, and she just sits there and staring off at the ceiling, is that how that works for you? Because that's not how that should go. Like, you're doing something wrong, sweetheart. So I'm just sitting there like, did you never? And part of me was just like, because he, again, hates me for being me. So I was like, should I? And at this point, maybe he didn't realize. I don't think he realized I was LGBT, despite being LGBT, very, like, not hiding it. And I would have went to the LGBT meeting, but that was during my other class, and once I told them that, they're like, yeah, no, don't skip that class. And I'm like, yep, it was notoriously hard. I got a C in it. Anyways, what happened was, I was like, fine, let's go to the bathroom, disassociate all you want, let's see if that works. No. And luckily the teacher did to like stop and called him out, like, no, it might be, it's a quick money-making job, as in you get paid at the end of the day, but never say it's an easy job. And also, don't tell people to disassociate when having sex. And like, what? Like, it was just such a horrible thing. And then he's like, you can just disassociate. I'm like, it's not just something that just, oh, it was horrible. And then I even remember later, because I was calling, like, when people were calling out, like, no, disassociation is a horrible response, and blah, 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 and it was a whole thing, talking about disassociating, and, he talked about other things, and just talking about, like, psychology things. God, I wish I remembered. And he was like, you know, I studied it and whatever, I'm practically an expert in psychology. And I'm like, are you now? Wow. And then shout out to the lady that sat next to me. Love her, absolutely love her. And we talked before, and I was like, are you aromantic? And she's like, I don't classify myself as aromantic, but I also just prefer not to date. And I'm like, fair. And what happened was, she was getting hit on by this guy very heavily, like really awkward, really heavily, and I was just sitting there like, oh my god, I wish I wasn't part of this. And then as he's trying to connect with her, try to find like a connection, you know how you do, and he thought he found it in black coffee, and she's like, oh no, I don't really, it's just the one I buy. And then she turns me and chats me up really heavily because we were friends, and you could see he didn't like that. He felt awkward for trying so hard and failing, but then also that she was talking to me so familiarly, and I was like, and so later I brought it up, like, to her, like, oh, he was flirting with you heavily. And this is all, by the way, the video is gone for a while, but so what happened was, she was like, he was flirting with me. I'm like, girl, yeah. And she's like, oh. It was very funny. She was very sweet. I absolutely loved her.